Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us this beautiful section. We'll be watching both the Q&A and the chats. So if you do have any questions for our speakers or questions for me in general, that's fine. You can just drop them in the chat or in the Q&A. And for those who don't know, my name is Gloria. I work here at GetCoin. I do customer success. And I am joined with Ian from Ubiswap, and he is one of the lead developers there. One of the questions people always have is if these workshops will be recorded, and yes, they are. So you can always find our workshops on our GetCoin YouTube channel. So if you have to retrace some information and come back later, you can always do that. And we also monitor the chat there. So if you have questions on the YouTube channel, we are more than happy to answer any of those questions as well. Lastly, you're going to want to make sure that you have connected to the Cello Discord channel. There's always lots of great content and people there who are able to answer any questions that you might have as well. And I'm not sure, Ian, does Ubeswap have a Discord channel as well?
Yeah, Ubeswap also has a Discord. Also, I think Patrick's here now.
Oh, okay, cool. Let's see if I can bring him up to the stage. Perfect. Yeah, so we'll also have Patrick.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Patrick.
Morning.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, good to be here. Sorry I'm late.
Oh, no worries. Easy goes it during this last year. That was something I learned.
Yes.
But we were just talking about resources for people who maybe are following along or want to reach out later. So does Moola have a Discord as well?
So Moola's Discord is based in the Cello Discord. So we have a channel under the applications tab, and you can find me there.
All right, great. So what we'll do is I'm going to go ahead and let the two of you maybe introduce yourselves before we start to get chatting. And I'll go ahead and start with Patrick first, and then I'll move on to Ian next. So Patrick, go.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Patrick. I'm the founder of a project called Moola. We're building algorithmic money markets on the Cello network. So we help owners of CUSD and the Cello native asset earn compound interest, which is paid for by generally speculators who are taking either leverage long or short positions in the price of an asset. I also run a validator group on the network and am a steward of the Cello Community Fund. So if you've got a good idea for a project, we'll be posting the intake form for that very soon. We'll be doing that very soon.
Cool. And so I'm Ian. I'm the lead developer and founder of Ubiswap. So Ubiswap is a exchange for Cello-based assets. And currently there's not a ton of assets out there on Cello to trade. So we're making a way, or we're trying to provide a lot of different assets for people to use by incentivizing them through yield farming.
Awesome. Thank you for the brief introductions. And I think I'm going to start with Patrick. Patrick, can you tell us a little bit more about Moola and the project and get us a little bit familiar with it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to run through and do a demo if that would be helpful. Share my screen here. Here we go. Okay, we good? See me? Yes. All right, excellent. So what you're looking at here is the browser, the Safari browser on my phone. So Moola is browser based, and if you want to, when you're ready to access Moola markets, what you do is go to app.moola.market and initiate a connection. And by the way, we're in public beta. We will be releasing an updated version of the Moola app very, very soon. But what you do is go to app.moola.market and initiate a connection. So I'm going to go ahead and tap Connect Valora. And what it's going to do is that it's going to open up the Valora wallet on my phone and ask me to confirm that I want to connect. If you've used MetaMask on Ethereum, then this is a familiar flow for you. The idea is that the keys are housed in Valora, and all of the funds and control of the funds runs through Valora, so users don't have to download a new wallet. So now I have connected my Valora wallet. You can see that it's pulling in my my wallet address up here, and it's giving me information, including my balances in my Valora wallet. And if I want to earn compound interest, the first thing I'm going to do is initiate a deposit of CUSD. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to deposit about 50% of my balance, so that'll be about $18. It's again going to open up Valora and ask me to confirm the transaction. It wants me to input my PIN code to confirm that this is in fact my intention. And when this transaction is confirmed, we're going to be able to see what happened on the back end. So this should take about 5 to 10 seconds. There we go. Very quick transaction. And it looks like the Blockchain Explorer is still waiting to pull that data. So in the meantime, I'm going to come back to that transaction while we pull that in. I'm going to come back to the home screen. So now you can see that I've deposited $18.16. If I'm just looking to earn compound interest, I'm done. I can stop right there. My balance, I'm accumulating compound interest. But let's say that I am actually short on the price of Cello and I want to get into a short position. What I can do is that now that I've deposited collateral, I can come in here to the menu and I could borrow Cello against my CUSD collateral. So in this case, let's borrow about 1.7 Cello. Again, sign the Moola transaction using Valora, and that transaction was much faster. Let's actually circle back real quick and see if so this is the transaction detail for the deposit transaction that we did just a second ago, not the borrow transaction. But there's a couple of things I want to point out. One of which is the transaction fee. You can see that cost 0.005 of a dollar, so extremely cheap. What that means is that we are able to access a much larger group of people who may not have large amounts of money and who may not be able to keep their money on deposit for very long. But the deposits and withdrawals and borrow transactions are extraordinarily cheap relative to other traditional types of money markets that you may have used on Ethereum. But there's a couple things that I want to point out. The first of which is these two transactions right here. The first of which, this is the debit transaction from my wallet of 18.1 CUSD. And then right below it, you can see a credit transaction back to my wallet of MCUSD. So MCUSD is an ERC20 token. It is a bearer instrument that can be presented back to the protocol at any time to claim the underlying collateral, which would be CUSD. But because it's an ERC20 token, it can be sent around the Cello network. And really, there's a lot of things that you can design on top of the MCUSD tokens. So those were the two things that I wanted to point out. Let's go back to the app. So I just borrowed Cello, and my goal is to now get into a short position. So in this case, I'm going to come back to Valora. I'm going to go into the Cello tab, and I'm going to sell the 1.7 Cello that I just borrowed. And I will, as soon as this transaction is confirmed, I will be in a short position. I deposited CUSD, I borrowed Cello. I'm now selling that Cello for Cello dollars. And if the price of Cello drops and if it goes down, then I'll be able to buy that Cello back on the open market at a lower price, and my trade will be in the money. But let's say that in fact I am long on the price of Cello, and I think that the price of Cello is going to go up. So the first thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to repay my debt. So I come in here, I repay my Cello debt. It's again going to ask me to sign the Moola transaction using Valora. It'll take about 5 seconds. It'll cost me, not even, that took 2 seconds. That cost, again, 1/1000th of a penny. I'm now going to deposit Cello into the money market so that I can borrow Cello dollars against it. Because again, I want to get into a leverage long position here. And we should see this transaction. Okay, there we go. There is the CUSD that I just received from when I withdrew. So now I am going to borrow CUSD against my Cello collateral. So I'll borrow about $13.50. And then the last step, as soon as this is confirmed, is that I'm then going to sell the CUSD for Cello, again, using the automated market maker that's built into Valora. And I'm going to switch to USD. We'll do 13.7. And now when this transaction is confirmed, I'll be in a leverage long position. If the CUSD price of Cello increases, then my trade will be in the money, and I will have profited off of that leverage position. A couple of other things to point out down here is the health factor as well as the loan to value. Currently, the maximum loan to value that you could take is 0.75 or 75%. The liquidation threshold at which point some of your collateral can be liquidated is 80%, and your health factor represents how close you are to being liquidated. So any health factor below 100% represents a position that could be liquidated. And we have published an open source liquidation bot, an open source liquidation bot that that folks are running and are looking for loans to liquidate. If you liquidate a loan, you get the collateral that you've liquidated at a discounted rate to market. So there's an economic incentive there. Some interesting applications that I think could be built on top of this. Again, this is composable. We do have, when you deposit CUSD or deposit Cello, you do get an interest-bearing ERC20 token in return. I really like the idea of setting up something like a savings circle, which is a popular savings technique in many parts of the world, where multiple parties get together and contribute each every so often, weekly, monthly, and then one of the participants gets to withdraw from that savings circle. You could do a spin on that using Moola, where all the parties deposit, and then once a month, each one of the participants gets all of the interest that's accumulated. So essentially what you're getting is a leverage position on your deposit, but you don't actually have to give up the principal. I think that would be an interesting take on a familiar savings process. That's essentially a no loss lottery, except repurposed for savings purposes. Another interesting technique another interesting potential use case that I would like to see built on top of this is redirecting the interest payment streams to charities. It's a pretty easy technical lift to redirect the interest accumulated to another account. And so putting a skin on top of that and building out a user experience such that it's easier for people to identify potential recipients, folks like Impact Markets and others, but being able to make it easy to, again, do an interest-only donation to a charity or to an organization that's doing good things in the world. Those are a couple of projects that I would love to see, but the design landscape is pretty broad here, and you can do a lot of amazing things, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you're building. So happy to answer any questions, Gloria.
Wow, that was great. And I'm really thinking like the whole aspect of interest-only donations, it seems really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Let's see, so I don't see any questions just yet in the chat. If you do have a question, feel free to drop it in the Q&A. We will be periodically looking back and forth at these questions, so you still have time to drop a question for Patrick there. And while we wait for more questions to accumulate, I'm going to go ahead and give the ball to Aaron, and so to Ian, and let Ian talk a little bit about Ubiswap.
Thanks, Gloria. Yeah, great presentation, Patrick. I think Moola is a really great project, and Ubiswap will probably integrate a lot with it in the future. But I'm going to share my screen really quick. Can you guys see my screen?
Oh.
Okay, great. Cool. So yeah, Ubeswap is again, a decentralized exchange built on Cello, and the tagline I put here is bringing DeFi to Cello, because what Ubeswap provides is this token that represents liquidity of two different assets. And that token is what allows DeFi to be enabled, because that token can compose into letting people do other things with the asset. So yeah, here's some screenshots of Ubiswap, but yeah, we're a mobile first DeFi exchange, and I have a quick demo video I've recorded. It's a little bit blurry. So basically, here's the Ubistop interface. It's actually based off the Uniswap interface. It's almost the exact same thing, but you just type in what token you want, and it will tell you how many tokens you receive. So I actually already connected my wallet over here, but normally you'd see a button over here that says connect wallet, and it will just connect to Valora. So I'll go ahead and show a trade. Yeah, so I'll type a number. So you click swap, right? And then it tells you exactly how much you're going to get. You go to Valora, you click allow, and then once it's done confirming, it will show you that the swap happened. So yeah, it's extremely fast. This all happened, this video was recorded in real time, but also the fees are super low. They're like under 1/10 of a cent. So yeah, that's Ubeswap. Let me see. Cool, so why Cello? First of all, Cello has very fast and cheap transactions. So what you can do with Cello is you can put your staging version of your app on mainnet. So this lets you collaborate really quickly with other people and let you build without having to worry about excessive testing on localhost. Also, you can deploy smart contracts really quickly. The other thing is it's based on Ethereum. So there's two parts to that. One is you can reuse smart contracts with audits. So it's EVM compatible. And also you can reuse the front end with small code changes. So it's Web3 compatible, meaning that basically you could just take any app on Ethereum and copy and paste the code essentially and not change it too much. And it's suddenly compatible with Cello. So another thing is that the stablecoin is built into the protocol, meaning that it's really useful for real world transactions. Other tokens like Ethereum, they have a stablecoin on them, but the stablecoin is not built into the blockchain itself. So basically the Cello token fundamentally supports the Cello token fundamentally supports stablecoins much better in that it accrues the value of the stablecoin's adoption. And yeah, the last bit over here is that's mobile friendly, meaning that we're building DeFi that people can use from their phone. I think a large part why stock trading took off in the past 5 to 10 years or so is that people were able to use people were able to trade stocks on the go, and it just made it really easy for people to get involved in finance. So here's a graph of yield farming on DeFi. Basically, yield farming kind of started around here, where the TBL was around 1.154 billion. And right after that, DeFi kind of just skyrocketed. Earn yield in staking the token, and they make profits more real because you have to provide liquidity in order to get this token. So that basically, if you want to sell your tokens, there's already liquidity in the market. So I have a few ideas for projects that could be built on top of Ubeswap. One of them is token lists. So we already support the token list standard built by, Uniswap. But it would be really nice if there's a wallet on Cello that supports other tokens and token lists. Right now, most wallets only support Cello and Cello dollars because traditionally those are the only two tokens that have been on Cello. But it would be really cool to have a wallet where you could use any token. And on top of that, if you could take this token list and make it community governed, that'd be even better. So I mean, it could be in the form of GitHub pull requests, but something more sophisticated, like maybe even using a token, could be more interesting. Another project idea is pools of Moola tokens on Ubeswap. So like Patrick was saying, you basically can deposit Cello dollars and Cello into Moola. But what that does is actually gives you a token called mCello or mCUSD. So it would be really interesting for someone to launch one of these pools on Ubeswap to kind of get the token ecosystem going. Because right now there's only two tokens in Ubeswap, which are Cello and Cello dollars. And on top of that, that would allow users to get extra yield in their Moola Cello dollars, because Ubiswap will be launching a token sometime in the next month or so, probably. So in theory, that pool might get incentivized with Ube tokens. So there's also a few resources we built for Cello developers. Basically, a lot of stuff we built in order to launch Ubiswap. First one is the Cello utility contracts. So one of them is called Create2, which basically is an Ethereum opcode that lets you deploy contracts with the same address each time, and multi-call, which lets you call multiple contracts at the same time. If you're using Hardhat for developing your app, we built a Hardhat integration. We have a Valora integration with Web3 React if you're using that library. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to join our Discord. It's linked on our website, ubiswap.org. Yeah, and our Twitter is at Ubeswap, and our Discord link is available on our website. Yeah, thanks.
All right, thank you so much, Ian. That is actually really fascinating as well. So I'm excited. I mean, I think it would be, the token list was really awesome, like that with it having the community governed. I think that would be really, really cool. But also any project that would have both Ubeswap and Moola together, I think would be really exciting as well. So hopefully we'll see something along those lines, towards the end of this hackathon. We do have a lot of questions, so I will go back. Patrick, I know you already answered one, but for those who do not see the chat, I was wondering if you would re-answer it for us. And that is there a cap on principal that you can keep in the account to scrape off the compound interest to give to charity or reinvest?
There is no deposit caps. There's no deposit maximums or minimums. There's also no deposit time restrictions. So you can deposit in one block and 5 seconds later in the next block withdraw it, which, again, this opens up the design landscape for people who may not be able to earn interest on their money for very long, who need to spend their money shortly after they get it. Essentially what this means is that they can deposit, they can earn compound interest, and then when they need to spend their money, they can spend it immediately. And to not worry about giving back all of their yield in the form of transaction fees, again, because Cello is scalable. But no, there's no maximum, there's no minimum. And I think it makes it much easier for charities to, for their ask, instead of having to ask for a principal donation, asking a donor to deposit their money for a period of time, and then the donor gets their principal back. That's a much easier ask, and I think that this may become a very popular way to give in the future. You could also structure it such that it's some of the interest and not even all the interest, if you wanted to get creative that way.
Yes, thank you, Blythe, for that question. This question comes from Rafat, and it is: will we be able to swap CUSD to USDT or USDC in the new future on Ubeswap?
It's possible. So it depends on whether or not USDC or USDT launches on Cello. And I think there are some incentives or some projects trying to do that right now, but I don't know what the timelines are on that.
And this, again, is back to you, Ian. This is from Kevin, and he says, can you explain the pooling portion of Ubeswap?
Sure, yeah. So it's almost exactly the same as a Uniswap. Not almost, it is exactly the same as Uniswap. But basically, you click on the pool tab, and you would click Add Liquidity, and just specify the tokens you want to put in, and you get a pool token out of it. Ubiswap interface supports typing in an arbitrary contract address too. So if you have a token that's not part of the Ubiswap token list, you should be able to add it.
Great. This question goes back to Patrick. Patrick, this is from Ivan, and it says, oh, wait, you know what? I just lost it. I don't know. What are the fees of Moola?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the network transaction fees, as I showed, are a 10,000th of a penny. They're quite minimal, and what I showed was the deposit, but the withdrawal, repay, and borrow transactions are also equivalently about 1,000th of a penny. In terms of the protocol fees, when you take a loan, the protocol charges 25 basis points. There's also an interest rate spread that is taken essentially from the borrowers and not given to the liquidity providers or the savers, which is also 25 basis points. And if you take a flash loan fee, although I did not demo flash loans and we haven't actually flipped the switch on those yet, but we will be soon. If you take a flash loan, then it's 9 basis points. All of these are governable parameters and can be adjusted. Currently, Moola Inc. controls those parameters, but we will be moving to a token model with a DAO, and then ultimately the community will have the say on that. But those are the costs.
Awesome, thank you. And Ian, Ivan has the same question to you, but for Ubiswap.
For sure, yeah. So again, the fees are a tenth of a penny. I think they're probably a little bit different from Moola's fees, but it might be a tenth of a penny versus like a 10.1 of a penny. So it doesn't really, it's not that different. But in terms of the fees of the protocol, there's a 0.3% swap fee that goes to the liquidity providers. And in the future, a sixth of that swap fee is going to go towards people staking the Ube token in some sort of a governance mechanism.
Gloria, if I could just add one more thing to that question, which I skipped over, which is that the other fee, and I think that's kind of implicit, but I just want to make it explicit, is that if you take a loan, you do get charged interest, and the interest rate is variable. Well, actually, you can take a stable interest rate, which doesn't change under most circumstances. But in the current user interface, the only option is for a variable interest rate loan. The interest rate varies depending on the utilization of the pool of capital. So if the overall pool of capital, the borrow rate is low relative to the amount of supply in the pool, then the interest rate charged to the borrower is also quite low. As what we see now, it's about just around 1.5%. As the pool of capital gets used and the utilization rate increases, that is, there are more borrowers relative to the supply, the interest rate also increases. And we'll be publishing visuals and graphs of what that looks like to make that dynamic easier to understand. Just wanted to cover that because I didn't mention it. And it's.
Thank you for adding on, Patrick. I appreciate it. This next question is for you, Ian, and it comes from Alex, and he is asking, is the total liquidity or turnover volume displayed in Ubeswap somewhere?
Yeah, good question, Alex. So not yet. We're actually waiting for the graph to finish their Cello integration, which should probably happen in the next 3 weeks or so, but we'll have it pretty soon.
All right, and this is the last questions. It's coming, at least last that I know. There might be more, so we'll see. Right now it comes from Josh, and he wanted to know that, oh yeah, there's more coming. They wanted to know the inspiration behind the app. So I'll let you start, Patrick, if you could tell us the inspiration behind the app for a little bit.
Yeah, so at a micro scale, I was managing some capital and wanted to deploy it on Cello, but was limited in terms of the kind of options that I had. I was having to look at the Ethereum ecosystem, which was just overly expensive with gas fees. So I had this micro problem, but I also spent an early portion of my career at a retail bank, and this heavily influenced my decision to do this as well, because I narrowed down my kind of the if we look at the Cello ecosystem and we are attempting to give people who may be financially excluded access to traditional financial markets, or at least similar types of tools, there's really four pillars that people depend on with a retail banking relationship that I've narrowed it down. The first two are deposit and withdrawal. So within there, I include things like direct deposit, being able to do automatic bill pay, being able to access your cash, being able to spend and receive merchant services. All of these types of things I include in the deposit and withdrawal pillars. And at a base layer, the Cello network really takes care of that. You can send transactions and receive money. But the other two key pillars that I felt were missing were access to credit and access to yield. So within a retail banking relationship, that is money markets, certificates of deposit, small business loans, car loans, credit cards. as well as home equity loans and these types of borrowing and yield generating instruments. And I felt like those two pillars were really missing, and Moola could fill that gap. So now what we have is access to yield through liquidity, providing liquidity as a saver. You can also take collateralized loans. We will be introducing a mechanism of credit delegation, which will unlock unsecured loans, but that's going to be coming down the road. So those were my inspirations: is my micro problem, and then kind of the more macro understanding of what people depend on with a retail banking relationship traditionally, and how we can recreate that for anybody who's.
I absolutely love that. My whole family lives in the jungles of the Congo, so like you're talking directly to someone who understands unbanked people. Ian, do you know the backstory? Can we get the backstory about Ubiswap too?
Sure. So the backstory of Ubeswap is just that I think Cello is a very interesting system. I think that it's really nice what its mission is for the world and how it will empower people in other countries. My parents are from the Philippines, so I visited there before, but I think it'd be really interesting to make something that people there can use without having to rely on the banks or the government necessarily. So to me, Ubeswap is just a natural thing that needs to exist for that to work out. And something like yield farming will make it so that these people in other countries will be more empowered than, people in places like America, where they're dealing with systems that kind of take advantage of like the common person, basically. So yeah, I just want to build something that's really good for people.
That was beautiful. We have one more question that's coming. Oh, we have a couple more questions coming in. There's one from Blythe, and she was saying, how hard have you found adoption of tokens with general users, like the folks who don't understand DeFi?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we've in the second version of Moola that'll be coming out, there's a focus of, what we did is essentially we bifurcated the user interface into a simple user and a professional user. Simple user being somebody who just wants to earn interest, and they don't care about leverage, they don't care about yield farming. They just want to save their money. And their story, their path, and what they need is different than a speculator who's an important piece of the ecosystem and is really driving the returns and the rates. And they need much more detailed analytics and understanding of kind of what their risk profile is for the positions that they're taking. And so we've redesigned what we've built such that we can kind of easily handle those two pathways. I'm cautiously optimistic that it'll make that a little easier. But yeah, educating people on financial literacy in general is a difficult problem set. And something that needs to be tackled. I'm going to go ahead and plug the Cello Community Fund here, which I mentioned earlier that I'm a steward, because we do have a pool of capital, and one of the pillars that we will be funding is research and education. So the more that we can educate people and just get them to understand basic concepts around money and financial literacy, I think is hugely important.
Beautiful. Yes, education around financial literacy in general is like hugely important. There's been a lot of people that have been excluded from it traditionally, and so just giving them the opportunity to grasp the concepts is key. All right, we have another question. This one is for Ubeswap, and it says, let's see, it's from Alex. He says, Ubeswap has a very pleasant UI. Does it leverage a library, or is it all house-made?
Yeah, thanks, Alex. It is based off the Uniswap UI. So if you go to app.uniswap.org, it will look almost exactly the same. What we did is we changed up the colors and the font. But yeah, it's really nice how Cello is able to use the same code base as other things. Also, I just wanted to say something to Patrick's point about education. I think that what Cello does, right, is if people who are not financially literate learn about Cello first, I think that it could really change the way people view money. And I think there's a lot of biases towards people in the West or just richer countries that are more familiar with financial concepts, and it makes them kind of scared of crypto. But there's really a large opportunity to, bank the unbanked, and not just bank them, but like just make them invest in better assets that are better for them to hold. So that's really what I think is super interesting about what Moola is doing, what Cello is doing, and just DeFi in general.
Yeah, I always think of it as more of like empowering the unbanked, like giving them the tools where they can make the decisions to do what's best for them.
For sure.
Rather than trying to bring our DeFi onto it. But you made a great point. Thank you. This is from Josh, and Josh has a question about what other projects that are building on Cello are you most excited about?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I mentioned Impact Markets earlier, which is a UBI project that I think is just really interesting. There's another project called Resource Networks that's building a mutual credit network, which is a very interesting economic idea where businesses that essentially do business with each other can extend each other credit and essentially create money out of their interactions with each other. It's potentially a huge efficiency gain, economically speaking, for businesses that work with each other, and Resource Network is building the technology stack to coordinate that, and it's being powered on the Cello network. There's live examples in the world there's a very large mutual credit network that exists in Switzerland and has been around for decades and does billions of dollars of economic activity. But I think that that's an idea whose time has come and is gonna find product market fit. So that's another project.
I think a lot of the projects Patrick has mentioned are stuff I'm really excited about. Another one that's I think they're actually building for this hackathon is Poof.cash. I don't know if I should announce them right now, but they're basically a clone of Tornado Cash for Cello. But I think that kind of stuff is really important for people in these other countries, especially because sometimes the government might be more authoritarian there. So it's just a good way to preserve privacy, while like letting people freely transact without having necessarily like opposition go against people.
Yeah, that's hugely important right now, especially in a lot of different countries. So yeah, I cannot wait to see some of the projects that come out of this hackathon. Like there's a lot of really cool projects that are being built. So to those building projects, keep going. It's really exciting. You're almost at the halfway mark. And let's see if there's any other questions. This is your time to give it. If not, then I will be giving back time. But it looks like we're all caught up with questions. Do you have any last thoughts or anything else that you want to amplify during this time? I'll start with Patrick with any type of.
So yeah, very excited, and I'm happy to chat with anybody about any ideas that you have. But again, you've got two very composable tools between Ubeswap and Moola. So I look forward to what your creativity brings, and I don't have any very inspiring closing words except to say that I'm excited to see you all here and look forward.
And Patrick, just for people who want to reach out to you, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, Discord is the best way to get in touch with me. Patrick -Moola, that's not a dash, but line Moola on Discord. But just come into the Moola chat, and I'll be there hanging out.
Perfect. Thank you. And I did drop the Discord link in the chat, so for those who need it, it's there, and we'll be dropping the link in the YouTube video in the comment sections for those who need it as well. Ian?
Yeah, for sure. Closing thoughts. If you're building on top of Cello, please reach out to us, especially if you have some sort of token, because we really want more assets to trade on Ubeswap, and it will just help increase visibility for both of our projects. On top of that, our Discord is available on ubeswap.org. There's a link somewhere on the website with the Discord icon. So definitely reach out, even if you're not launching a token or planning on integrating with Ubiswap. Like I'd love to help offer feedback of any sort and help with building the app. But yeah, I really want to see the Cello ecosystem grow.
I do have one more thing to throw out there. Moola is hiring. We're hiring a full stack engineer, a smart contract engineer, as well as a CTO, and I'll be publishing those job postings later today. So if you know good people, please, or if you are a good person and you're listening.
Perfect. I'm sure we all know good people, so that's great. Well, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for your time, and I want to thank you all for attending. For those who also need to know to either share this or watch this again, the link is accessible on our the Getcoin Media YouTube channel. Sorry, I had a brain fart there. And we look forward to connecting with you all on the next workshop. For now, I'll go ahead and end this session and see you all on the interwebs. All right, bye, y'all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.